Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Village Board meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is for the Arlington Heights Village Board for December 1st, 2025. And if you could all please rise and join the board in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Maggie, could you please call the roll?
Trustee LaBedz. Trustee Schwingbeck.
Here.
Trustee Santa Maria. Here. Trustee Bertucci.
Here.
Trustee Gilbert.
Here.
Trustee Zyck.
Here.
Trustee Dunnington. Here. Trustee Manganaro.
Here.
President Tinaglia.
Here. Thank you, Maggie. We've got two sets of meeting minutes to review and approve, and the first one tonight is from November 17th, 25. Do we have any corrections or changes or passes from anyone on the board?
Pass.
Pass from Trustee Schwingbeck is noted. Anyone else? Is there anyone from the audience that has any comments on the minutes? If not, can I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the meeting minutes of November 17th, 2025.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. None opposed. Motion carries. The next set of minutes is from the closed session meeting minutes, and that is from 11/3/25. Same question. Any changes or corrections or passes from anyone?
Mayor, I need to pass. I was out of town.
Pass is recorded from Trustee Bertucci. Any other questions? Anyone from the audience? If not, is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the closed session minutes from November 3rd, 2025.
Motion made by Trustee Manganaro, seconded
Second.
by Trustee Schwingbeck. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And none opposed. Motion carries. And then we have the approval of the accounts payable for the warrant register dated 11/30/25, and I call on Trustee Bertucci.
Mayor, I'll move approval of the check, of the warrant register for the check date, November 30th, 2025, in the amount of $3,585,416.45.
Second.
Motion made by Trustee Bertucci, seconded by Trustee Santa Maria. Any other discussion? Changes? Anyone from the audience? Seeing none, roll call vote. Maggie, please.
Trustee Bertucci.
Yes.
Trustee Santa Maria. Yes. Trustee Zyck.
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck.
Yes.
Trustee Manganaro.
Aye.
Trustee Dunnington.
Yes.
Trustee Gilbert.
Yes.
President Tinaglia.
Yes. All right, very good, thank you. So now we're going to recognitions and communications, and we are really fortunate that tonight we've got a couple things to celebrate. And the first is regarding our very own farmers market here in town. I see a lot of lime green shirts, and I think they're all part of the crew. If you haven't known, that's a program that we have in our downtown by the Historical Society, and it's there on Saturday mornings all summer long. And this year, our farmers market was voted by the American Farmland Trust Poll as the best farmers market in the state of Illinois, and the third. So that is really something to be proud of, because I know a lot of people enjoy it, and it doesn't happen easy. These are people who work really hard to make it happen. And Maggie Schraga, is she here? Come on up, Maggie. Come up to the podium. I want to introduce you to everyone. And you can share your story about who you are. You know, exactly how did you achieve this wonderful program? How did this go?
I did write a little speech.
That's good. I'm glad you did.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to recognize the work of our committee. The Arlington Heights Farmers Market started near the parking garage at North School Park in 1999 by a local resident. In 2014, the market was handed over to the Arlington Heights Historical Society and moved to its current location. Over the years, and due to the work and dedication of our team, the market has grown from 10 vendors to over 50 vendors. This team has also expanded the market to include hot food, weekly live music, family activities, and special events. It's truly become more than a market. Week after week, this market continues to grow, but not just in size, but in spirit. It's become a place where neighbors meet, families gather, and our community comes together every Saturday morning. People often stop me and ask, what makes our market different? The answer is simple: the vendors, my volunteers, and the vibes. It's hard to put into words, but when you come to the market on Saturday, there's just something special. This year, we welcomed over 75,000 people over our market. Our team is already busy planning for next year, and we promise to make it an even better season. But lastly, we would like to invite everyone here and those watching at home to check out our winter market on December 13th. I was a little nervous.
That's wonderful. Maggie, would you do us a favor and call up your whole group up here? I'd like
love
our
to.
board to come down
Yeah.
and take a picture with everybody. Could we do that?
Yeah, come on up.
down, guys.
These are all volunteers who are out there 23 weeks of the season, early, hot days, taking down. Really, we couldn't do it without our volunteers. You guys are coming too? Yes. Okay, come on. We got to take pictures. Yeah.
Come on, buddy. Come on.
Okay, you guys are gonna have to get in just a little bit, if you can squeeze in a little. One, two, and three. 1, 2, and 3. Got it. Thank you.
So Maggie, what was the winter date again?
December 13th,
December 13th. That's a Saturday again, of course. 9 to noon. So that'll be the winter market if anybody's interested. But then when will you reopen again in the spring? May 9th. Okay, very good. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, so as if that wasn't enough celebration, we've got two more, and that's this whole side of the room. We have a couple of sergeants that are going to get promoted. So, Chief, you want to come on up?
Well, thank you, Mayor, and good evening, members of the board. This is an exciting evening for the police department. Not only do we get to recognize one, but two professionals, two individuals who have dedicated a number of years to the police department and now are ready for professional advancement. One thing that these two officers have in common is they were both field training officers. And as a field training officer, you are the person who helps shape and mold the next generation of the police department. It's a critical and crucial role for the police department to make sure that those that we onboard comply with our policies, procedures, and they get to do business the way we expect them to do in Arlington Heights. And it's our first opportunity as the leadership team to see how people manage with other people. And it gives us a good indication of how these gentlemen will do as first-line supervisors. And they haven't let us down. They competed in a process, and tonight we're going to see the fruits of their labor come to fruition. So first up, we have Officer John Vincent. John, come on up here. Let me tell you a little bit about John. Officer John Vincent received a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and psychology from the University of Illinois at Chicago. In 2007, Officer Vincent was hired by the City of Oak Brook Terrace Police Department, where he worked as a police officer until 2013, when he lateraled to the Village of Arlington Heights Police Department. During his 12-year tenure with the Arlington Heights Police Department, he's been assigned to the Patrol Bureau, where he has served as an evidence technician, fire arson investigator, field training officer, certified truck enforcement officer, and drug recognition expert. Officer Vincent has been the recipient of multiple department commendations and letters of appreciation from citizens and other law enforcement agencies. Officer Vincent has been with his girlfriend Jada since early 2025. Officer Vincent's brother, Thomas, who is also here this evening, has served with the Lake Bluff Police Department since 2007. John, if you'd step to my right and face the mayor and raise your right hand.
All right, so you can repeat after me. All right, so right now it's state your name. I, Jonathan Vincent,
I, Jonathan Vincent,
having been appointed to the office of Police Sergeant
having been appointed to the office of Police Sergeant
in the Village of Arlington Heights,
in the Village of Arlington Heights,
in the County of Cook,
in the County of Cook,
do solemnly swear and affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States and the Constitution
of the United States and the Constitution
of the State of Illinois,
of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office according to the best of my ability.
of the office according to the best of my abilities.
I know you will. Congratulations. Hand this over, but I think you're pinning it first. Go ahead.
I want to present Sergeant Vincent with his shirt star. He's going to be issued star 589, and he's elected to have his girlfriend Jada pin him. So Jada, if you'd come up here and
I'll try not to.
I debated, but
Jada, we've got some flowers for you. And John, we've got the rest of your credentials here, your hat star and your off-duty star. Congratulations.
Well, it's an honor to be able to do something like this here. I know that I speak for everyone here on the village board when I say nothing could make us prouder than to have these men and women in our blue represent us in Arlington Heights as they do. It's wonderful. These are great people to have working on behalf of us. So this is for you. You can thank everybody and whatever you need to say.
all right, now's the tough part, right? I'm not as good of a speech teller as Chief Pecora, so I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I'd like to thank the village board, the village management team, the police and fire board commission for this opportunity. I'd like to thank my family, including my girlfriend Jada, who's here, my brother Thomas, his wife Annie, and my three nieces and nephew, Amelia, Jack, and Sadie. Unfortunately, my mom couldn't be here today. She's in southern Indiana, and the weather kind of kept her from wanting to come, being 70 years old and can't see him very well. But she is listening to us on the TV, so I hope she heard that. I also like to thank the police administration for this opportunity. Been nothing but good things here at Arlington Heights. I lateraled over here in 2013, looking for more opportunities. I'd like to say in patrol, I think I've experienced almost everything that I can experience, and I'd like to also thank my coworkers, past and present, some of which are listening today, for all their support and dedication. And I hope to use all that knowledge, skills, and abilities in my new position as a sergeant here to either mentor and help lead or just be a good boss to people. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. The same professional attributes go out to our next recipient here that I mentioned earlier, Police Officer Mike Turano, promoted to Police Sergeant. Mike, come on up. Officer Mike Turano was hired by the Arlington Heights Police Department in 2011, continuing a proud family tradition of service. His father served as a police chief, his older brother a police commander, his younger brother a 911 dispatcher. His two brothers-in-law are also in law enforcement, one a sergeant and the other a detective. Mike holds a bachelor's degree in sociology with an emphasis in criminology from Northern Illinois University. During his 14 years with Arlington Heights, Mike has served in the Patrol Bureau, where he's held several specialized roles, including accident reconstructionist, field training officer, firearms instructor, a drone pilot. He has also served as a serious traffic accident reconstructionist team member with the Cook County Major Case Assistance Team. Mike has received several departmental awards and commendations, including the Valor Award in 2013. At home, Mike enjoys life with his wife, Jen, their 2 sons, Joseph, 8, James, 6, and their golden doodle, Winnie, his constant shadow. Outstanding. Mike, if you'd step to my right and raise your right hand and let the mayor administer the oath of office.
Okay, Mike, you can repeat after me. I, Michael Toronto,
I, Michael Toronto,
having been appointed to the office of police sergeant
having been appointed to the office of police sergeant
in the village of Arlington Heights,
in the village of Arlington Heights,
in the county of Cook,
in the county of Cook,
do solemnly swear and affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the state of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the state of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office according to the best of my ability.
of the office according to the best of my ability.
I know you will. Congratulations.
Mike, I'd like to present you with your duty star. It's 589. Wear it proudly, wear it safely. And your father, Chief Toronto, is going to pin it on you. It's okay if you do. The fire department's here. Congratulations. Congratulations, Mike.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for coming tonight. I greatly appreciate it. I'm truly grateful to all of you that are involved in this process, the village board, the Board of Fire and Police Commissioner, village manager, the mayor, and police command staff. Thank you for having the confidence in me. I will not let you down. To all my fellow officers, thank you for everything. I've enjoyed working with you as a patrol officer, and I'm really excited to be able to do something more and work in a different capacity with you. I'd also like to thank my lovely wife, Jen, and my 2 boys. Thank you for your constant support. I greatly appreciate it. And hopefully I'm not forgetting anybody, but thank you all for coming out tonight. I really appreciate it. And to say I'm excited is an understatement. Thank you all.
Can we get the other candidate up here and their families? Let's bring the families, the children and the girlfriend, the husband, or wife, excuse me, and the dad. And then just the 2 sergeants? Yeah, okay. Where's Chief? Dad, come on up. We're going to do a group photo here with both of the new sergeants. Oh, sure.
We got sent here after the fact.
Get in there.
Oh, I took them way on. I'm sorry. All right. Well, if I'm not mistaken, that concludes the heroic things that we were covering tonight. So if you don't want to stick around the rest of the evening, you don't have to. That's for sure. You're welcome to leave. We have other less exciting business to take care of here. So for now, we're going to have a public hearing for the proposed 2026 budget, and I think we have to open a hearing for that. So can I have a motion, please, to open a public hearing for the 2026 budget?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to open up the hearing, the public hearing for the proposed 2026 budget.
Second.
Okay, motion made by trustee Bertucci, seconded by trustee Schwingbeck. Any comments or questions? Anyone from the audience? If not, a roll call vote for this? Becky?
Trustee Bertucci?
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Yes.
Trustee Santa Maria?
Yes.
Trustee Zyck?
Yes.
Trustee Dunnington?
Yes.
Trustee Manganaro?
Aye.
Trustee Gilbert?
Yes.
President Tinaglia?
Yes. Okay, so now I'll hand it off to Manager Reckhouse.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, myself and our Director of Finance, Melissa Gallagher, are going to be providing a brief overview of the 2026 budget. For the folks at home, this is not the first time that this has been discussed at a meeting. I want to stress to the folks at home that the budget was discussed formally over November 10th and 12th and was made available to the public on October 31st on our website. These meetings are in addition to the budget ceiling meetings we held with the village board this past June, as well as the work of staff from every village department and the internal budget review team. We are required by law to hold a public hearing on the budget before approving it, and that's what we're hoping to do tonight. Tonight's presentation will summarize and will attempt to address issues and questions raised by the village board at the meetings last month. The village code requires the village manager to submit a balanced budget to the village board every year. Our form of government features a separation of the political process from the administration of government, unlike the state and federal governments. Under our form, the budget presented really represents a good faith effort by staff to achieve the goals of the legislative side of government, meaning the Board of Trustees, and a reflection of the values of the trustees as we've come to understand them. And so we sincerely attempt to balance your values with the operational realities that we face, the legal obligations that we have, and the professional best practices that we've been trained to provide. So this is not a wish list of staff, but rather a sincere attempt to engage the will of the board as we understand it. So first, let's talk a little bit about where we were in 2025 briefly, some of the things that occurred. We finalized the plan for putting a 5th ambulance into service. This was a multi-year discussion based on the dramatic increase we've seen in EMS calls over the past 10 years. We've seen about an increase of 15% in EMS calls over the past 10 years, and so we've been planning on getting a fully staffed ambulance in service, and that plan is now is ready to go, dependent on the passage of this budget. Obviously, this year, there's been a lot of movement and discussion on the redevelopment of Arlington Park by the Chicago Bears. We're in a very different place than we were a year ago. Began the year by signing that memorandum of understanding. We've been meeting with the Bears basically weekly throughout the year, updating and refining their plan, talking about things such as traffic, economics, and so forth. Obviously, another important step of this process is a legislative one to get legislation that would enable this project to move forward. That legislation did not pass in the fall veto session. However, we're working with them and making another attempt with them this coming spring on that. We've continued our investments on on infrastructure improvements within the town, and we saw a lot of progress. As I think everyone can see, that progress in the form of construction activity in the town, even if you don't really want to drive through it, it does represent an investment in our community. We've also seen a significant investment and interest by the private sector in the redevelopment of the south side of our town, as evidenced by the elevation of the Gateway project. There's been more interest in looking at residential growth along that corridor, and that's something we've been spending a lot of time on planning for. And then last but certainly not least, we have seen a very significant change in leadership in the community over the past year. Not only do we have a new mayor, as you all know, we have 4 new trustees out of 8, and we have 4 new department directors out of 9. So this has really been an unprecedented year of change for this organization and this community. And so there's a lot of work to be done, and that has been done on harmonizing all those voices and those new ideas to make sure we're all moving in the same direction and for the betterment of the community. So in terms of 2026, the areas of focus of this budget are we are addressing the ambitious 2026 to 27 strategic priorities that were set by the village board this past summer. We're balancing all of the new ideas that we have with the realities of the major development projects, including the Bears proposed development and the various South Corridor concepts, and trying to find a way to strike a balance between those new ideas and the ability to adapt and respond to what development proposals are walking through our door. We're continuing to maintain and improve the village's robust capital improvement plan, despite pressures on keeping a balanced budget. And we're evaluating the village's long-term public safety needs. I talked a little bit about this past year, developing the plan and finalizing the plan, I should say, for the 5th ambulance. In the coming year, we're going to be talking about kind of the impact of some of that upcoming development on public safety staffing, including police. And we want to make sure that whatever development occurs anywhere in town can pay for the services that it demands. And so that's something that we're working on very closely. I'm going to turn things over to Melissa Gallagher, who's going to talk a little bit about the budget process.
Thank you, Manager Recklaus. As we begin tonight's 2026 brief budget presentation, I would like to provide just a brief overview of the structure of the village's finances and the economic conditions shaping this year's budget. The village manages 26 separate funds, including each serving a specific purpose. And our two largest funds, our general fund and our water and sewer fund, operate independently with one another, but all funds work together to provide our core services for our entire community. The general fund alone accounts for about 43% of all activities for the entire village. And this year's budget was really developed against a backdrop of rising operating costs and a mixed economic outlook. While the Federal Reserve signals caution due to slower national growth and cooling consumer spending, Illinois' outlook mirrors what we're seeing as far as uncertainty. State forecasts point to some moderate to flat growth for revenues, and there is steady but slowing job gains and continued cost pressures for municipalities, particularly in labor, materials, and contracted services. We've seen inflation stabilizing as compared to recent years, but remains above historic norms at roughly about 3%. This still influences wage expectations, utility costs, and capital project pricing. And despite these challenges, the village remains committed to responsible fiscal management, long-term planning, and maintaining the high level of service to our residents and what they expect. And we're looking ahead to some factors as well that we'll discuss that point to some uncertainty and things that we're monitoring as far as long-term financial impact, potential reductions in federal funding, or at least uncertainty, and also some pressure on pensions as well. But with that background, the budget does reflect the 2026 balanced priorities in careful cost control and also an investment in essential operations and infrastructure. You know, as we discuss the property tax levy, it's really important to remember that the village receives about 11% of the total property tax bill. The remaining 89%, so the majority of the property tax bill, goes to other taxing bodies, including school districts, are the major property tax amounts. Even with the adjustments, minor adjustments to the village's tax levy, the impact in the overall tax bill is still relatively minor, and our portion funds village services that are essential and core at their nature. The 2026 budget focuses on how the village uses its portion of the property tax bill responsibly to maintain service levels and to invest in infrastructure and also support long-term financial sustainability as well. We've shown this slide during our budget meetings in November and would like to also kind of show that past outlook all the way back to 2003 tax levy year. In the last couple of years, municipalities like Arlington Heights have seen non-property tax revenues, consider sales tax and income taxes, really moderate to flatten and have been able to leverage grant opportunities to reduce impacts to property tax levies. The village held the property tax levy flat for about 5 years, as you can see, from 2023 to 2019 levies. And this strategic action was taken by the village board so that we're able to reduce we were able to reduce property tax impacts because of non-property tax revenues coming in better than expected. In one of those years, we're able to, with the village board directing a rebate or an abatement back to residents at about $1.6 million, which is always an option when we have surplus dollars available. And that was in 2023. So an abatement back to residents. While we have managed the levy responsibly, some cost pressures, such as public safety requirements and contributions, are outside of the control of the village. Before we go through the components on this slide, what I wanted to share was what Village Manager Reckles has touched on. When we begin the process of the budget, we really begin that in the spring with a surplus discussion that the village board it takes in consideration and staff recommendations. So our audit is somewhat completed in spring. We come back with recommendations. Should we reach an amount available to determine as surplus, which has in past years been able to reduce long-term liabilities, invest in infrastructure, and we've been very successful in that way, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But in the spring as well, somewhat mid-year, we come back with a parameter discussion, which is considered a budget ceiling discussion that forecasts out for the Water and Sewer Fund and the General Fund out 3 years. And we're looking to, at that time, indicate from a projection standpoint what we're somewhat conceptually looking at for a potential property tax levy. At that point, mid-year, it was about a 3.63%. With the village board's direction and feedback, we worked diligently through cost cutting and also looking at the entire village budget through the departmental review. And the village board's direction was propose the budget with a lower tax levy, somewhat near inflation or lower, or a flat levy. We worked diligently, and the results of that are showing at a 2.29% year-over-year levy increase. So what that means at this point is the proposed levy for the 2026 budget reflects a modest increase driven mostly by pension contributions for fire and police. Our police protection and fire protection levies decrease slightly while IMRF and FICA rise in line with payroll. The capital improvement line represents the amount for planned street work, and then our debt service line is our bonds that we pay down. Overall, the village levy increases by $892,000 or 2.29%, which is below inflation, and the total levy, which includes the library, shows an increase of 2.92%. I will point out the village board approves the tax levy for the library, which is included with the villages, and that levy amount is 4.55%. And so overall, again, the village portion is what we look at when we're talking about the village's budget. And what does that mean when you're thinking about an impact to a homeowner? Well, we look at one amount, which is we don't say average, but let's say that there's an estimated amount, which is a $450,000 valued home. That amount roughly estimates at $39 annually as an impacted increase by this levy amount. And that breaks down to just about $3 per month. This reflects, again, only the village's share, which is about 11% of the total, and that supports all of our core services for the village. So hearing, and based on our discussion from the November budget meetings, we brought back a few exhibits and wanted to share those with you. We discussed both the property tax levy and the overall health of the village's reserves. And the next few slides illustrate different levy decisions affecting long-term financial position. They're by no means projections, but they're just more illustrative. The scenario before you shows, in this scenario, the status quo, which is our proposed levy amount of 2.29, and it brings it out about 10 years out to 2035. What this tells us is we're keeping expenditures and revenues at about a same amount increase of 2.5%. The effect on fund balance, if you levy this year and hold no levies, so flat levies over time, as you can see, it starts to bring down fund balance over time from about 40% to 32%. Our fund balance policy at the maximum is 40%. So over time, it's going to deplete fund balance steadily. Even though there's no single dramatic drop, it signals that maintaining operations without adjustments are going to become harder each year. We want to make sure that we have financial flexibility throughout our budget process and respond to some of these inflationary pressures and uncertainty that we have. And this is just one scenario that we wanted to walk through. As I go through the second scenario, this scenario shows sort of the longer term impact if you do not levy this year and you hold no levy increase over time, so zero or flat levy from 2026 to 2035. Again, assuming minimal increase to revenues and expenditures. Nothing ever goes to minimal in terms of revenue changes can happen due to economic downturns or uncertainty, sales taxes, recessionary periods. However, we're just for this illustration showing that over time, the use of reserves happens over time. What this also shows you is that while it goes down to depleting reserves, you're going to also lose out on that amount that's levied, which is a multiplier effect over time. So the effect is losing out about $11 million worth of reserves, and in addition to that, about $9 million over time without that levy increment for this year. If we take it one step further, if you defer a levy amount for next 1 year into the next year, that would exacerbate over time. So 1 year pushed out would be something that you're going to look at a higher levy increase year over year.
Can I jump in on that?
Yeah,
too, Melissa?
please.
Yeah, and I just want to stress, 'cause I know there's a lot of numbers throwing out, that there's only one difference between scenario 1 and scenario 2. And the only difference is what the levy increase is in 2026. Everything else is the same. We're assuming the same revenue increases for non-property tax revenues, the same expenditure increases, and a flat levy in all the out years. And so you can see, if you look at that last number out on for 2035, by what you do in 1 year in 26, it dramatically impacts what you're going to have in the future. It's about $11 million difference over 10 years, unless you're willing to do essentially a double increase, a large increase in a future year. So you're kind of trading a small increase this year for a larger increase in future years in order to make up that difference. But this, I just wanted to stress that point.
Thank you. So one of the things that we wanted to bring back to as an illustration is the village board's strategic reserve use over time. At the point, as I've mentioned in spring, should there be reserves available in the general fund, if we reach that amount, we come back with a recommendation. And from 2017 to 2024, about 37 million reserves have been available to be put towards long-term liabilities, such as pension funds, our health insurance fund, capital, which is from our parking fund, all the way to our water and sewer fund, and also that property tax abatement that I mentioned as well. That's a really important decision that we've taken over time. When we look at the pension funds for fire and police pension funds and look into that just a little bit more with detail, you'll see that the amounts from reserves have contributed. Our pension funds are well funded. We're working towards full funding by the time that it's required in 2020. And speaking with our actuary over the last month or so, they've also indicated that those additional contributions really have decreased the long-term liability, helped the funded status, smoothed out over time those when market returns don't turn out as expected, and then also really helps put less pressure on the property tax levy and lowers those property tax amounts over time. Another important part is paying for capital improvements rather than issuing debt. rather than borrowing. And reserve transfers for those capital groupings, those funds for parking and capital, fleet, lead service line, and water and sewer, those have been funded with reserves, which allowed the village to save about approximately $10 million in interest costs over a 20-year period. That's about the typical time that we would issue debt. What that means also is that we haven't had to levy that annual debt service payment for 20 years at 1.7 million, estimating. So it's a very important part of the narrative by using strategic reserves, and wanted to make sure that that was illustrated with a debt financing scenario.
I think I've got the next one. What I was going to say is one thing with this is, some of these funds, if you look at the lead service line replacement fund, the parking fund, without these transfers, we would not have had sufficient revenue to make ends meet within these funds. They've been dependent on this reserve use and the use of surplus funds in order to make them work. Because we've had issues such as the parking fund, we have less commuters now. And so we've had to lean on those reserves to get us through these times. Fleet fund, we'll be talking about that in a little bit. The fleet costs have been going through the roof, just like personal vehicles have been going up, the cost of fire trucks and everything else. We've leaned on those reserves in order to get through these difficult times. And obviously unforeseen, unfunded mandates like the lead service line replacement fund, all of them depended on that. The other thing that we've depended on that is not likely to continue is we have really worked hard to get grant money over the last several years. And we've received about $23 million in grants since 2020. We're anticipating in 2026, we're going to get about $1.3 million in additional grants. However, we don't believe that level of grant funding is going to continue in the future. The federal government excuse me, has been making a lot of cuts. That trickles down to less grant monies to the state government. And we've seen in the past when the state government has been squeezed, they tend to take monies away from the local governments as well. And so while this has been a great story, I want to stress that we don't think we can count on this. The other thing that, when you look at factors to kind of determine whether or not you want to save some additional money or lean on your reserves or put additional money in reserves, some of it is the confidence that you have in future trends. And one of the things that we're looking at is the rising unit costs for infrastructure. If you look at street resurfacing, unit costs have gone up 66% in the last 5 years. So basically what we're saying there is if you look at the number of miles of roads resurfaced, in 2022 we did 7 miles, and in 2025 we did 5 miles. We're roughly the same amount of money. So, we're getting less value for our dollar right now, and that's really squeezing us. It's even more dramatic on the water side. In 2022, from 2022 to 25, we've seen a 109% increase in our unit costs. Now, you all know that these are not costs that we can just simply defer. And while there's been some pressure on that, and we've been kind of masking this somewhat by the aggressive grant funding we've been getting, we know that we can't keep that up because these unit costs are going up to this extent, which means we'll be doing less and less roads every year. Just because you do less roads doesn't mean they're deteriorating less, which means you end up just spending more money on perhaps a reconstruction project versus a resurfacing project in the future. So you end up spending more in the future if you defer these costs. And so these are things that are reasons why staff is recommending that modest increase, and we don't want to miss, we want to make sure we put that away because these are real costs. These are real expenses we have to incur. Other things that are contributing to uncertainty, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that the federal government passed, while the impact is still unknown, it does reduce Medicare reimbursement for ambulances. We know that that's going to impact us. We know our revenue is going to come down. We don't know how much. I already mentioned the reduced funding to the state. The other thing that's being discussed seriously is the elimination of Tier 2 municipal pensions. Back in 2011, the state created a dual system of pensions for state and municipal pensions where folks hired after a certain date get less of a pension benefit. It's saved taxpayers quite a bit of money. We've been funding our pensions based on that for the last several years. We're just at the tipping point now where just about a majority of our employees are considered Tier 2. There's serious talk of making all Tier 2 pensioners Tier 1 pensioners. Now, none of us have been funding our pensions at that level. So in order to meet our obligations, it's estimated we would have to immediately increase our property taxes by almost 7%. That's something we're hoping does not occur. But again, these are all things that we need to somewhat hedge against. And we're looking at these modest increases so we don't have these dramatic increases in the future. One of the other questions that we got during when we made the budget public was, there was an observation, and it was interesting and a fair one, that the amount of money we're spending in 2026 is less than 2025. And so the question is, well, if we're spending less in 2026, why are we proposing a tax increase? And so sometimes it's easier to explain things in terms of a regular family budget than it is a $200-some million municipal budget. And so we're introducing everyone to the Dunnington family. And so the Dunnington family, they're good savers, and they planned ahead for years saving for big purchases. And this past year, it paid off. In 2025, they found themselves having to buy a new furnace, a new roof, a new driveway, and new windows. Now, they were okay because they had saved. And so while they spent a lot of money, they had saved a lot of money. And so they're not going to have to do as much in 2026. And so technically their spending is going down. But they know that there's other expenses around the corner. Their son is going to need braces. Their parents are going to need elder care. There's a new car they're going to have to buy around the corner, and they need to start saving for college. So the amount that they're saving actually is going up, even though their spending is going down. So that's kind of where we are this year. We didn't get a new driveway or a new furnace, but as you can see from these capital expenses, we had a lot of other expenses that we incurred that were essentially one-time expenses this year. So what were they? We did a once every 15-year residential meter replacement. We did a series of one-time stormwater projects, and we bought a fire ladder truck, a rescue squad, 2 ambulances, and 4 snowplows. And I know you guys are probably thinking, why are we buying all these vehicles in one year? And the answer is, if you all recall, during the COVID-19 pandemic, there were a ton of supply chain problems. And so a lot of these vehicles were ones that we ordered in like 21 or 22, and literally it took 3-4 years to get some of these pieces of equipment. And so while we had saved for them in our fleet fund, the cost went up significantly, but also we didn't obtain delivery of them until this year. And so we like the Duntons, had a very expensive year. But we know that there are other things around the corner that we need to save for. And rather than having a big cost in one year that we weren't prepared for, we want to be prepared for it. We want to avoid this scenario where we're draining our reserves at an unsustainable rate. And so that's why we want to maintain kind of a more modest increase in our savings, if you will, in order to keep things going. It has been asked, what would the budget look like with no property tax increase? There's basically 4 options, or a combination of these. You could do a permanent operational spending reduction, which is you essentially stop being in the business of doing something we're in the business of doing now, reducing staff essentially. We could do a one-time reserve drawdown. We could permanently eliminate a single planned capital item that's equivalent to the increase that we were looking at, or we could increase another tax by an equivalent amount. But things to keep into consideration is, as we've mentioned, if you use one-time dollars to draw down your reserves, your expenses are still going up every year, and so you'd have to do a bigger increase in a future year to make up that loss. The other thing to keep in mind is if you reduce property taxes as a percentage of our budget, that means that we're more dependent on elastic revenues like sales tax that fluctuate with the economy. And generally speaking, when you're more dependent on elastic revenues, the financial advice is to have larger reserves to weather the ups and downs of the economy. The other thing you could do is you could do permanent cuts in the general fund. 81% of our general fund budget goes towards people, so you would have to look at staffing to make that. And so it would limit our ability to engage in new projects or conduct required operations at the level that we are doing now. But with that, I'm going to turn things back to Melissa. She's going to talk about kind of where our taxpayers stand relative to some of our peer communities.
When we look across our municipal peers, which is, in the area that we live, our neighbors, generally speaking, a little bit higher than us and a little bit lower, but Arlington Heights has typically been somewhat in the middle range. When we look at all the utility costs, taxes that you might spend at the grocery store, food and beverage costs, and even the property tax amount. So roughly total estimated annual homeowner costs, roughly around $3,000. And that's one of the things that we're kind of taking a look at when we're determining other things such as new taxes. And to the point of modest increases, this is what we're also taking a look at as well. We spent a lot of time looking at the general fund, and within the budget book, there's a lot of information about the general fund, and this just typically tells you kind of where the money comes from. About 30% from property taxes. A lot is from non-property tax revenues that we try to minimize the impacts from property taxes with other types of revenue. Where the money goes, the expenditures from the general fund, as Manager Recklos has mentioned, that is personal services, people delivering services to the community is most of what we do in the general fund. Is evidenced by police, fire, public works, as the departments listed here, and all of our other departments working together. And as you can see over time, the general fund has taken, we've taken a disciplined approach to expenditure planning. Costs rise but moderate levels over time, and the disciplined approach has helped us maintain service levels and fund our long-term needs. In addition to that, small incremental change has helped us with our structured planning for capital and minimizing the impact on taxpayers.
This year's budget, there is an increase of 7.5 additional employees. 6 of those are the firefighters we've been talking about all these years to staff that 5th ambulance. If you remember, because you need, it's a 24/7 operation, so in 2 people per shift, and so that's what you need to staff that. It doesn't exactly account for vacations and so forth, but we're going to use existing staff to cover that. We also are proposing an additional half-time employee to address gap in coverage and code enforcement issues and the Building and Life Safety Department, and a new permit technician position, increased capacity within the Planning and Community Development Department. As you all know, there are a lot of projects, both ones from the outside and board-directed items going to the Planning and Community Development Department, and so we want to make sure that our planners have the capacity to work on those bigger projects, and so having a permit technician will allow them to be alleviated from some of the more clerical administrative work so they can focus on those big projects. We do not add people lightly in our organization. We are still just about 7% lower number of employees now than we were 20 years ago. There were significant reductions made in the aftermath of the Great Recession, and we've tried very hard to maintain those, and there's been only incremental increase in staffing since that time. We're still far below our peak, but we've only added a couple of people at all since the major cuts were made, despite the fact that our community is growing and demands are growing within the community. We also have, these are just the high-level infrastructure projects that we have, and with that, we're happy to field any comments or questions from the public as part of the public hearing or discussion from the village board.
Okay, thank you, Manager Recklos and Melissa. Great presentation and all of it. Let's go to the board. Questions from the board on this particular item. I do have some blue cards. We'll go to the audience next, but Trustee Zyck, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you, Randy and Melissa, for everything. I appreciate all the work that that's been done, and it's amazing how complicated this whole thing is. And you do a good job of putting it all together. Now, during the budget meeting, though, I was very direct in my thoughts, and I've been talking about this since the beginning, that we started the budget period of what do we need to do to have a flat, to not have that 2.29% increase. Now, I kind of want to give you an idea of my thought. I want to be honest, I wanted to be talked out of this. I really do, because I do understand the logic behind it, but there's some things that I see that make me question it. I don't know if you can go back to the one slide where we were talking about the scenarios and 0% every year, and that one. Okay. Message got, okay? If we go all these years and we do 0%, yes, we're going to have an issue. I fully acknowledge that. But what we're talking about right now is this one particular year, not. And I know there's also talk about if we don't do something this year, we might have to do double next year or then on. As a piece of evidence, though, one thing I would throw out here is, and I'm looking through, and I've got the proposed budget in front of me here. You know, we talk about there's a number in here where we have the budget. General funds expenditure summary by department. The surplus deficit was budgeted at $514,000 deficit, but the projected actual, and I get this is October 31st, and things change, is actually being up $1 million. So that's a $1.6 million swing in our favor. So every year changes depending on what happens and where we're going. When I left that meeting, was it 2 weeks ago now, there was one comment that was made. It was actually by a citizen who's here tonight, that kept resonating through my brain. I kept going through it. So we have to have the 2.29% increase because we can't budget a deficit. We don't want to show that we're budgeting a deficit because that's not the right thing to do. But here's the thing: when we do a budget, we figure out all of our expenditures. And I know this is going to be very general, but I think it's in the right direction. We budget all expenditures, figure out where all the expenditures are going to go, and that's the number. And then we look at our current model of revenue, and we look at it and we say, okay, this is under our current model. This is what we're going to get. And with that current model, we're going to be $892,000 down. So we are budgeting for a deficit. The decision now has to be made: how do we handle that? But how do we handle that deficit that we're showing there? And you talked about a lot of them. Sure, we could cut staff. That for me, it's a non-starter. We could cut expenditures on operations and pensions and things like that. That's also a non-starter. Pensions are an obligation. They're not an expense for me. Whether it's police, whether it's fire, or whether it's IMRF, that's an obligation for us. So that leaves us with the tax levy increase, or it leaves us with taking the $892,000 out of it. Now, if we take the $892,000 out, as you've got in here, it drops it down this year from a 39.7% of our general fund surplus to a 38.7% of our general surplus. We've got a policy. And again, if I ever say anything that's wrong, please call me on it. I'll own it. But we have a policy that our general fund needs to be between 40 and 25%. We're not going anywhere near that 20%. We're dropping it down. We're trying to do the right things for some people in the community. I understand it's only $39, but it's still the right thing for the community overall. And again, this is where my head is going on this. It's the right thing to do. Okay. If we go ahead and look at that policy, we're staying within the policy, the 40 to 25%. But if we're sitting here and we're saying that we can't ever drop more than 1%, and we're not dropping into a danger territory, we're only going to 38.7, so we're 1.3% away from our top. If we're saying that we can never go 1% less, more than 1% less, well, we frankly need to change the policy. We need to have a serious discussion about that, about where that policy is going. And I'm trying to look at this. I know there's a lot of unknowns. There are a lot of unknowns, and I get that. And that's part of what we all have to do, and that's part of what you guys are doing. And I thank you very much for doing that and pushing people like me on this. But we have to also, and that is part of the structure, but we also have to look at the data and the facts that are right in front of us. It was funny, during the last meeting, it was talked about these unknowns for having the tax increase, and then there was also a comment made about unknowns for not having the tax increase, because unknowns for the citizens out there that they're also facing. So there's a whole bunch of unknowns. I'm trying to look at this from a factual standpoint. And for me, dropping it down, doing the right thing for this 1 year, we make a different decision next year. Now that's where my head is. To everybody else on this board and everybody else watching in here, that's where my head is. And I'm looking forward to listening to everybody, because I'm sure there's going to be some comments coming back at me why I'm wrong about some of these things. And I'm looking forward to that, because I do want to get change, because you guys, I know we're presenting something good, but at the same time, there's facts that are just, I don't see that we need to do that this year. We can take this out of our general fund. Sorry for the babbling, and thank you.
Okay. Who else? Who's next? Trustee Gilbert?
Okay. Thank you. Thanks to first of all, just thanks to the staff for putting this together. It's an incredible thing. I just wanted to make some comments to the Duntons who are in the audience or who might be listening, because I think that this is some high-level stuff, and I think that it's important for purposes of transparency to kind of let people know how this works. So my questions are to you, Mr. Recklaus. Can you explain this process a little bit for everybody at home and all the ships at sea? How does this work? How many departments are involved with this? How do you guys come up with this?
So, it starts with, as Melissa had said, we look at our surplus in the spring of where we are. We don't really know where we're going to be literally to the end of the year. There's a couple of really key factors for us. One is, the holiday sales tax can vary quite a bit. If you have a good holiday season, it has a good impact on sales taxes. If you have a bad one, it reduces it. The other thing is looking at things such as snow and ice control. If we have a bad winter in December, there's a lot of public works overtime. If we have a good one, then you don't have a lot. So there are some variables at the end of the year where it's very difficult to project. So we look at in the spring where we have as a surplus.
Who's we?
The collectively, the management team, the budget team, Melissa and I will look at that, and then we will have a meeting with the village board in the spring talking about this is what our surplus is, this is how we can reinvest it. There are times when we have given, as Melissa indicated, in 2023, we gave a straight out abatement where that money was literally taken off the tax bills of residents. The same as if they hadn't been taxed at all. That's something that is an option, and we've done it before. If that's something the board wants to provide tax relief, you can do that. The other thing you can do is we're obligated by state law to fund our pensions at a certain level. And so if we put extra money in our pension fund, that saves property tax, that prevents future property tax increases. That's something that can be done to provide tax relief. Or you can use it someplace we need it, an unexpected expense, something like that. We've done all of those things. So then in June, we will look at our what we call our budget ceiling process, where we look at what's going on in the economy, where are sales taxes, income taxes, all of that right now, and we come up with, and we look at what our expenses are going up, what our inflation going up, and we come up with what are the budget ceilings what do we think we're going to need in terms of a property tax increase, and what do we think we're going to need to fund operations in the current year in a rough sense. And so we talked to the board, and this past year, the village board said, what we're projecting for property taxes, we aren't comfortable with that. We want something lower than that. And so we took that, and so we started with so then we take this budget ceilings back to the departments, and we say, based on the strategic priorities the board developed, based on your operational needs, submit your departmental budgets to our internal budget team. And this year we said, you can get 95% of what you were asking for last year. Or is it 95 or 97?
Somewhere around there. There was like 98%.
Yeah, 98%.
Previous, yep.
In 98%. So they were getting a haircut. Anything above that 98%, they had to ask for separate as a separate budget request. And so that reduced our budget. Everyone worked very hard. And then the budget team, I can tell you, and these folks can tell you, did not give everyone everything that they wanted. There was a lot of spirited debate. There was a lot of not this year, that type of thing, where we try to reduce that down further. We got things below the budget ceiling, and so then we were able to come up with a proposed property tax increases at 2.29%. And we factor not just what the needs are of the department this year, because as we mentioned, the 2.29% is not really about 2026. It's about what we see on the horizon in terms of what we're going to need to continue to fund things based on reductions in grant funding, based on the state of the economy, based on the increase in costs. It's a bit of a hedge against, what we see in the future. And we're trying to avoid those kind of unpopular, dramatic, bigger property tax increases. We're trying to keep things relatively flat with inflation is one of the goals that we try to have, because we find that those are easier to stomach for most people.
Awesome. So how many people are on this budget team?
What do we have, about 6?
5 or 6, yeah.
Yeah, 6 people on the budget team, and then every department has, at least 2 or 3, sometimes 5 or more people on their internal budget teams, and so we work together.
And how many departments are there?
9.
So 9 departments, each of those have 3 people, 6 people on. So we're talking a lot of people in the
Yes.
village.
Yes.
How many man hours do you think the village staff puts into this budget?
A lot. It's something, the finance department is essentially working on the budget in some form or fashion all year round. Certain people within the departments are doing the same.
Okay. And so then every department head, they come to you with their numbers, the budget team sifts through it. They go, this is a process that takes months, correct?
It takes, basically, we started we end it in December and we start up again in the spring.
Okay. I appreciate that. I just think it's important for the Duntons out there to know that this is not something that's put together in a weekend, that the staff spends so much time on this and dives through it. And I'm sure if you thought that a 0% levy increase was appropriate, you would have suggested that to us.
And we have in the past.
Correct. And it's not the case this year, but it's not, again, like you said, it's not a wish list. This is what the tremendous staff that we have has put together as a way to move this village forward.
Right.
Okay. I just wanted to I think that's important for the residents to know and hear. So thank you.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Bill?
I'll defer.
Defer? Okay, go this way. Anyone? Jim? Anybody? Tom?
Thank you, Mayor. Randy, and I think everybody on this board has gone through this process this year. There's nobody sitting up here that hasn't had their hands in on this budget. And I know in the past when you put up that chart where you've shown what our tax levy is, when you came to us those years earlier in the year and said, I am going to do my absolute best to come in at a 0%, you did that.
We tried, yeah.
Last year and this year, you didn't do that. You came to us with a little bit of an increase. This board challenged you and your staff, and you came back to us with a substantial decrease. And I guess where my head is at is none of us during the process gave you any indication that we were not going to approve this budget unless it was a 0%.
Correct.
Correct? So I think this board gave you and your staff some direction to come down from 3 point something down to 2.29. And I think you've done a wonderful job at doing that. And you do a fantastic job of running this village with your staff. Looking at those scenarios that you put up there, I don't see a single one that I would want to do. I think running the village the way you do, it's a very modest increase, and I think that's the viable solution this year. I certainly don't like to see an increase at all, and I know when I first got put on this board, I mentioned to you all those years that very early on in the process that I'd like to see it come in at 0%, and you did that. But I would certainly be in favor of coming in at the modest increase you did rather than some of those other options, because I think those other options would do nothing but hurt us in the long haul. So that's kind of where my head's at.
Thank you, Trustee Schwingbeck. Trustee Bertucci?
Thank you, Mayor. Okay. We're talking about a couple of things that are somewhat concerning. One is fiscal responsibility. And to kick the can down the road would be fiscally irresponsible. I don't know that of the residents that I talk to, I don't know anyone who wouldn't rather take a 2% now than have to be concerned about taking a 4 or 5% later. In addition, the hard work that's gone into this, and I have talked to not only Randy, not only Melissa during this process, I've talked to department heads, and I think that it would be a slap in the face, and we would be bordering on affecting morale with all the hard work that went into this, to say at the 11th hour, after we've had opportunities to discuss this numerous times, now here at the 11th hour, we're saying not good enough, after the staff has, and all involved have put their heart and soul of getting it down when we gave them the goal, get it under inflation. And in fact, that's what the staff has done. So, long story short here is, I think we have a fiscal responsibility to the residents to not put a situation on the table of 0% we've had much higher inflation than we did back those 2019 through 2023 or whatever those years were that we had all those zeros. I mean, we did a great job, but guess what? We were operating in very low interest rate environments, very low inflation. It's not to take away from what we did, but it was a little bit easier. It's not easy to do that right now in this environment. And for trustees, for us to say we want a zero, expect a zero, only to kick the can down the road and possibly subject residents to greater increases later, is a situation where we're just trying to say, see what we did? 0% this year, but we're not telling them, and we're not really admitting to what possibly can happen later. So, with that all being said, I am fully in support of this budget. I'm very comfortable with it. I've talked to everybody. I've talked to Randy. Like I said, I've talked to department heads. Had a nice conversation with Melissa. And I don't know if I said it here in a public forum before, but I even told Melissa, who needs Tom when you have Melissa? I thought Melissa did a great job for her first year here. And I would say that in front of Tom. Tom's a great guy, and I love Tom, but I thought Melissa did a great job too. So anyways, that's my thought. I think that we would be doing a disservice if we didn't pass this budget.
Thank you. Anyone else on this side? Not right now?
I think I'd like to hear from the public.
Okay, that's where I'm going next. All right, so we've had a quick little discussion here at the board level. I have just a handful of cards that it looks like are going to be focused on this particular topic. If I call on you and I misread it or misinterpreted, just let me know. The first one that I've listed here is Keith Moons. Keith, are you prepared to speak on this? Okay, come on up.
Thank you, President Tinaglia. Yeah, I'd like to focus on a separate account here, and that's regarding the Arts, Entertainment, and Events Fund. which is number 515, and in particular, the village's Metropolis Theater operating contribution for 2026, that's budgeted at $290,000. This annual contribution marches mechanically upward by $5,000 per year to $310,000 by 2030. First, I think a little history might be involved here on the Metropolis Theater. When the village board bailed out a local developer in 2005 and bought the Metropolis, the November 2002 C.H. Johnson Incorporated study reported that the village's contribution to the Metropolis would not go above $150,000 per year, and then would eventually tail off. But here we are now at twice that annual contribution, and it is rising each year. Will this board please have some discussion next year at the Board of Trustee level on how to reduce rather than increase the village's contribution amount by that constant $5,000 per year? Also, please consider a couple other concerns that have developed to me about the Metropolis Theater. Based on a Daily Herald article dated September 3rd, 2025 by Barbara Vitello, inappropriate behavior with staff members and theater artists was a subject of at least one lawsuit and probably two or three. Have these been addressed by the Board of Trustees this coming year, or will they be? In my opinion, public attendance at the Metropolis Performing Arts Center, or MPAC board meetings, would go a very long way to prevent any repetition of such inappropriate behavior, which none of us want over there. We want safe working conditions over there. There also appears to be yet another turnover of the MPAC Board of Directors president from last year. That sign does not portend very well for any substantial improvement at the Metropolis. We've another board president turnover. Please understand that in my view, finally, please understand in my view, the current acting MPAC president and board of directors are in no way responsible for the dismal financial condition and the questionable behavior that seems to exist at the Metropolis Theater. Rather, these abysmal conditions go way back to a longstanding MPAC board president and his complicit board of directors at that time. Finally, will this Board of Trustees please seriously consider addressing these financial and potential workplace safety issues that seem to exist at the Metropolis Theater this year? Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Moons. Next, I have Renee Schlenhart.
Thank you, everyone, including the village staff, for putting the budget together. Unfortunately, I'm sort of just getting up to speed on this process and what goes into it. And I do understand that we in Illinois have a very unusual compared to other states in the fact that, number one, we're one of the highest property taxes in the nation. We compete with New Jersey for the top spot at the moment. And something to keep in mind is awareness is increasing over property taxes, taxing bodies. I've understood for a long time the village is not one of our larger taxing percents, as was represented on the graphs. But just to keep in mind, over the last several years, between 2021 and now, we all have experienced inflation, and it's just now starting to reduce, but we've all had to tighten our belts with that. And I do appreciate that the original ask was higher and we brought it down and there was effort in that. I do appreciate that. That's all part of negotiation. You always aim higher and then you bring your number lower. I agree with everyone's points, including Greg as well as Tom. Can we, this may be the 11th hour, I don't know, but can we come somewhere in the middle here? Because we are getting taxed and feed here to no end. It's nonstop. 214 wants more money from us. They want almost $1 billion. And frankly, I watched my bill go up since I bought my house in 2019. And it's long term. I don't know if I can stay here when I retire. because I can't even imagine what my property tax bill will be. So just keep that in mind, that an awareness is increasing with people. They're talking about their tax bills. They all just opened their new assessment. They got their tax bill late for second installment. It is a hot topic. So thank you everyone for your effort, but I just wanted to, put that out there for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Next is Rob Brodecki. Are you on this subject? Yes?
Yeah, I'm going to tie it all into that.
All right, okay.
Thank you. And on that note too, I want to look at some kind of creative ways where we could help balance our budget, help raise more tax revenue without raising property taxes on people in the long term and helping to control our costs. So one of those ways is going to be the topic that you usually hear me talk about, safe streets. In the consent agenda, there's a couple of items about engineering and road work and things like that for the next year. With our priority on safe streets for this year that we put in as one, I think it's number 4 on the village priorities, we can use this as an opportunity to look at creative and new ways to make our streets both safer for pedestrians and bikers and also reduce our future maintenance costs for it. As Mr. Reckloss pointed out, these costs are going up. If we look at things like road diets, if we look at where we can narrow intersections, we can remove some asphalt. If every yard of asphalt removed at this point is less asphalt that we need to buy later on. And so it can help us reduce our costs. And we could do it as part of our regular road maintenance. And Chris, I do have some ideas from neighboring municipalities. I will be emailing you those. Second, what I also want to look at when we talk about the budget, again, one thing that I think is really key is understanding the data and where our revenues are coming from and where we're essentially kind of subsidizing part of our village. And what I think we really need to start looking at is tax value per acre. And there are wonderful groups out there like Urban 3 that are able to do an analysis of a village's taxes and really understand do basic heat maps of where are your taxes coming from and where are you essentially kind of paying for people to live in that area or for something to be done there. So I think that would be a very key thing that we could do, looking into getting an analysis about where are our tax hotspots in Arlington Heights and what can we do to try to replicate them. For example, downtown, probably very high tax value per acre with a lot of these developments like coming in the South Corridor, the Bears one and stuff. What can we do to try to encourage some similar developments there without distracting and taking away from downtown, but strengthening and trying to replicate that there. Kind of last, one thing to, during the strategic priorities meeting, Trustees Bertucci and Schwingbeck repeatedly hit on how we need to try to make it easier for people to develop here and build things here and get more businesses and stuff here up there. So again, it can help our taxes by having more businesses. The state of Illinois recently passed in our transit bill, which would eliminates parking requirements within a half mile of things like train stations. I think this is a chance to look at our whole village. What can we do to try to eliminate parking mandates across the village? A lot of our existing developments like strip malls have a lot more parking than we probably ever need. And this will allow smaller developers to get going quicker on businesses and homes without having to do this study. Bigger projects to get shovels in the ground quick, and it'll free up our staff from having to constantly process and deal with parking studies. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. I've got 2 more here. Arlen Gould.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for serving on the board and thanks for making the tough decisions that affect our community. I didn't intend to speak tonight, but I think it's an important topic, and having sat in your chair on another board dealing with similar issues, I feel I have a little bit to add to the conversation. If you look around, I mean, we're talking 11% of the tax bill that the village represents, and we're talking about a $36 a year increase per household on average. Seems to me, as elected officials to this village board, what you're elected to do is protect the ability of this village to provide needed services, to provide fire department when needed, to get the ambulance there when needed, to plow the streets when we have an unexpected storm, to have the resilience to keep doing more than one thing at a time. Buffalo Grove is building a big new massive fire station on Dundee near my house. And when I asked, it looks to be twice the size of any other firehouse around. It's because they anticipate the need with growth. What's the growth going to be on the southern entry to Arlington Heights with all the development there? What is the need going to be in the future of our department, fire department, in terms of ambulances and fire trucks and personnel? What is the need going to be for the village in terms of its police department to keep us all safe in very, very difficult times? We've talked about mental health. What responsibility does the board have, does the village have, in taking care of its residents who have serious mental health issues? Just over this weekend, just this weekend, the federal government announced that they were drastically cutting the funds for supportive housing and affordable housing nationally. That could throw 100,000 people out of their homes on a national basis, and it could affect residents of Arlington Heights. We don't know what's going to happen, but the world community of people involved in the mental health field are gearing up for a big fight on that. If you're in business, I dare you to tell me you think we're in stable times. I dare you to tell me that you know, or think you know, what the economy is going to be like in 6 or 8 months, given the kinds of hand grenades that have been thrown under the door, and you all know about them. I don't have to tell you about them. We're in very difficult financial times. My point is, it's not a time to risk the farm. You're talking $11 million over a 10-year period that this village may desperately need for other important tasks. This is not a time to venture. This is a time to be stable and protect what we have. And if in the future the funds look good enough that you can rebate to our community, then go ahead and rebate. But don't give away money now that we may need in the future, number one. And number two, where we may need to double up on the levy, which I think will be even more difficult than what you're doing today. But again, thank you for your service. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Arlen. Last card I have is Martin Bauer.
Thank you very much, Board of Trustees. I think all of you who know me, all of you in the audience who know me, know that I consider myself a budget hawk. I do not like tax increases. I do not like unnecessary spending. To me, fiscal conservatism really manifests itself more than anything on the spending side. We live in Cook County, we live in Illinois, we are all familiar with irresponsible spending. I don't see that in Arlington Heights, at least not right now. If we go back to the development of the tax levy to that slide, what we see is that there are a couple of positions that go up quite significantly, right? It's the police pension fund and the fire pension fund. I'm an actuary by background. I looked into these actuarial valuation reports. Those numbers are real. We can't avoid them. That's an extra $1 million that needs to come from somewhere. In response to the ask from the board, staff has done a pretty good job tightening that belt, and I appreciate that sentiment that all of you have, and I certainly feel it as a resident as well, that we're all called to tighten our belts. We're collecting $130,000 each less for police protection and fire protection, which needs to come from elsewhere because the cost doesn't go up. So we're really tightening our belt everywhere other than in those two positions. And I think that's the right thing to do. Back to fiscal conservatism, meaning watching our spending. None of you who have expressed some concerns have said, we are spending too much here. You're simply saying, I want to keep the spending, but I want to dig into the savings to pay for it, and that's not the right thing. Trustee Bertucci called it kicking down the can. I agree with that statement. We've talked about the fact that whatever you don't do this year, you more than have to do in a future year. That's not the right thing. And if we look at that chart, that scenario 1, we're already saying with the current budget, if it plays out the way the budget is, we will reduce the fund balance as a percent of the expenditures from 39.7 to 38.7. So we're already going down. In order to maintain our fund balance, we have to outperform the budget by over $1 million. So arguably, that's already built in. So I think that's all quite important to keep in mind. At the end of the day, I'm professionally tasked to think in time value of money, in inflation-adjusted dollars, in real dollars. And for as long as my taxes don't grow further or faster than inflation, that's actually an achievement. And I think that's what this budget has done. I hope that's what it will do in the future, and I hope you see it the same way. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. All right, I have some other blue cards here, but I believe they're all for other topics. Is there anyone else in the audience that wanted to address this particular item? If not, I'm going to go back to the village board here. Okay. Other comments and questions from trustees? Trustee Santa Maria.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. I sincerely want to thank our village staff for the tremendous amount of work that goes into building this budget, and your diligence and expertise and also commitment to this community make it possible for all of us to move forward. I think all of you know that the past couple of meetings that we've had, it was a hard discussion and very much was aligned with, we have a lot of other entities asking us for money, so what can we do? But it was through all of the wonderful education and comments from the community that really got me to think about how voting yes for this is extremely important, even though it includes a tax increase. And so first, the increase is below CPI, which means that we're not raising taxes at the pace that everyday costs are rising. And second, choosing not to take this increase would put us at a disadvantage in the future years ahead. And so that would weaken our ability to maintain services and address our infrastructure needs and plan responsibly for our long-term financial health. So with that, I also want to acknowledge that affordability matters, and many families are really feeling the pressure. And I don't take that lightly, but part of protecting affordability is ensuring that our village remains strong and stable, so we aren't forced into sharper increases or service cuts in the future. So again, thank you so much. I do think that your staff did a wonderful job, and I also appreciate all of the citizen comments that we heard today.
Thank you, Trustee Santa Maria. Anyone else on this side? Back to this side? Yes?
Thank you, yes. I do want to thank Village Manager Recklaus, the entire staff, Director Gallagher, especially for taking some extra time to speak with me today. And, you know, for me, this is not the 11th hour, because I have said from when we began talking about this, and I'm going to stay consistent with that tonight, that I cannot support anything other than a 0% levy. I believe that staff has gone as far as we can, as you can, to give us the budget that we were asking for. I absolutely agree with that. I do not have any concerns about any of the spending in this budget. A lot of the revenue, well, and some of the spending is based on assumptions, as we discussed earlier today. And the projection we're looking at is based on one set of assumptions. The next one is based on another set. And really, without fully debating all of those assumptions, there's an element of speculation in however we do this. What we also talked about was the amount of money that we have used out of surpluses over the years. And I don't know if you have the total off the top of your head over the past several years, but it's some
37 million.
$37 million. And what we didn't talk about was the opportunity cost of not having that $37 million in the pockets of residents to create other economic activity. So if we're really going to do an economic analysis, we have to be looking at a broader picture. Be that as it may, I do appreciate particularly that you added some of the items tonight that kind of create the trepidation about what may be in front of us, the potential loss of, or the likely loss of federal funds, just as one example. And the discussion about other taxing bodies. And I believe that someone has to sort of set an example. We may only be 11%, but we are obviously very visible. I believe it's important to set that example, to give our residents a break this year, as I have spoken about, because of all of the other costs that are much higher than normal. And yes, we hear everything goes up every year. It's only $36, and it all adds up. While utilities are up double digits or nearly so, insurance is up double digits and more. My assertion is that we need to give our residents a break for this year, fully aware that we may have to take levy in the future. The other thing that we have not had the substantive discussion that I've requested in the course of this budget year, and I know we will in the coming year, is where within that 25 to 40% range, as Trustee Zyck mentioned, we should be landing. And lastly, I'm looking back to the 2023 budget and the December 5th, 2022 Village Board minutes, where Trustee Bertucci moved for a 0% levy in a year that left our reserves 0.4% lower than a no increase levy would leave us this year. So clearly, this is not something that's fiscally irresponsible. Clearly, it is something that is not kicking the can down the road. It is making the assumption that I want us to make is we know that more often than not, because of our conservative budgeting, we wind up with a surplus over that 40% that we do something with in April. And I, for one, am willing to take that risk to give our residents a break for this year in the, I believe, large probability that we will have still some level of surplus to deal with in April. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Manganaro. Okay, anybody else? Trustee Dunnington.
Thank you so much, Mayor. First, I do want to thank staff because of all of the work that went into this budget. And I thought the presentation really answered a lot of questions tonight that I had. I know that everybody wants a 0% property increase every single year, but I don't think that this is the year to take money from our reserves. And so I am in support of the small increase. I think that there's too many unknowns for next year and that we should be more conservative with our budgeting and do this property tax increase for this year. Thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Dunnington. Okay, I think the next step is to close this part of the meeting. But before we do that, I just want to make a quick comment. Again, thanking staff as everyone else has done, because as we all know, this is probably, maybe not probably, certainly our biggest task as trustees, elected officials, handling a budget this big and making sure that we're fiscally responsible with everybody's hard-earned tax dollars. I take it really, really, really seriously, and I know everybody up here does too. And the passion with everybody up here speaking, and I think that really speaks well for who you've elected and how we feel about our jobs. I do want to make one quick point. Can you bring that slide back up, Randy, where it has all of the years in the past with all the different levies. This one here, I remember starting out in 2013, and if you go back looking through these numbers on the far right, not far right, the budget percent increase, you've got to go back to 2009. 2009 before you're going to see something that's 5%. In 06, it was 11%, 05, 14%, 04, almost 12%. But ever since then, it's been 0, 1.7, 2.6. There was a 3.59. There was a 3.6. But we've been really careful. And then there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, what I call goose eggs in there. That was 2019 to 23. And we were really blessed that we were able to do that. What's important to me is that we do our best to keep these numbers that we have here today, 2.29, and then last year's 2.46, at a tolerable level, not 6%, not 8%, not 14.67%. Those are tough times. I never, ever, while I'm sitting up here with this team, I never want to see that happen. So I would always veer towards conservative, careful financial savings because I think, as was suggested, you just never know what's going to come around the corner. And the last thing I want to do is cut services. Arlington Heights residents have pretty high expectations, as they should. And I look across the room here and I see our fire chief and our police chief and public works directors. Those are people that have high demands on them. And we have to make sure we do a good job. Randy, how much of our budget goes to people, employees and insurance and so forth?
You know, for the general fund, it's a little over 80%.
80%. It's an enormous, we're a people business. We're not buying and selling cars. We're a people business. And if we can't fund it, people don't get paid. And so a 2.29% increase, as was so eloquently spoken here by a number of us, I think is reasonable. It's $3 a month on the average. Some of us, it's quite a bit more, and others maybe not so much. But I'm happy to move forward with this, and every year keep a watchful eye, like you did this year. And I know we'll get started on it again in the spring next year, as staff said. This is a year-long process. That's all I have. So I believe it's appropriate to make a motion to close this portion of the meeting because this will come up again later in new business for vote. Am I correct?
Yeah, it would be a motion to close the public hearing on the budget.
Close
And
the
then
public hearing.
and then in the past, at times, if the board wants to, there, just so it's not disjointed, there could also be a motion to move new business items A, B, and C to now, and then that way you guys could vote on them immediately if you
Two
wanted
separate
to.
motions for that,
Yeah,
though. Close this section first, and then another motion to move up in the agenda.
If that's what the board wants, yeah.
Okay, so first, I would look for a motion to close this public hearing
So moved?
from trustee Zyck.
Yes.
Motion made by trustee Zyck. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by trustee Dunnington. Any discussion? Roll call vote?
Trustee Zyck,
Yes.
Trustee Dunnington,
Yes.
Trustee Bertucci,
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck,
Yes?
Trustee Santa Maria,
Yes.
Trustee Manganaro,
Aye.
Trustee Gilbert,
Yes.
President Tinaglia.
Yes. Okay, so we are back in regular session now, and then I think if it pleases the board, someone can make a motion to move up new business item A, B, and C to now, as opposed to waiting to the new business item.
I'll do that, Mayor.
Motion made by trustee Schwingbeck.
Yeah, I would say, as this is fresh in our minds right now, we've just been discussing it, so I would move to take new business items A, B, and C and move those up to now on the agenda.
Okay, the motion made by trustee Schwingbeck. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Santa Maria. Any questions or comments? If not, roll call vote or voice vote?
At your pleasure, Mayor.
Voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? None? Okay. So we will now entertain what is officially new business item A, and that is an ordinance providing for the levy, assessments, and collection of taxes for the year beginning January 1st, 2026 and ending December 31st, 2026 for the Village of Arlington Heights. There are motions on our desk here that can be read. Who would like to make the first motion here?
I could take the first one.
Trustee Schwingbeck, please do.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move that the Village Board of Trustees approve the Villages and the Arlington Heights Memorial Library's 2025 tax levy ordinance, providing for the levy, assessment, and collection of taxes for the year beginning January 1st, 2026 and ending December 31st, 2026 for the Village of Arlington Heights.
Second.
Seconded by Trustee Santamaria. Any questions from the board on this? Comments? Anyone from the audience? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Yes?
Trustee Santamaria?
Yes.
Trustee Bertucci?
Yes.
Trustee Gilbert?
Yes.
Trustee Zyck?
Yes.
Trustee Dunnington?
Yes.
Trustee Manganaro?
Nay.
President Tinaglia?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Now we'll go on to the next one, which is item B, an ordinance abating taxes levied for the year 2025. Hereforto levied to pay principal and interest on the $9,530,000 general obligation bonds, Series 2018 for the Village of Arlington Heights. Who would like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion made by Trustee Bertucci, second by Trustee Gilbert. Go ahead, Trustee Bertucci.
I'll read the whole thing if you'd like. I'll move that the Village Board of Trustees approve abating taxes levied to pay principal and interest on $9,530,000 of general obligation bonds, Series 2018 of the Village of Arlington Heights in the amount of $694,150.
Voice, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Bertucci?
Yes.
Trustee Gilbert?
Yes.
Trustee Manganaro?
Aye.
Trustee Dunnington?
Yes.
Trustee Zyck?
Yes.
Trustee Santamaria?
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Yes?
President Tinaglia?
Yes. All right, that motion carries as well. And then the last item for now is item C. I won't read that all over again. I guess I'm reading the same thing that the motion is, so I'll skip my part. Who would like to take the last motion? Item C.
I can make the motion.
Trustee Dunnington, please do.
I make a motion that the Village Board of Trustees approve the budget and appropriations ordinance and amounts set forth therein for the year commencing January 1st, 2026 and ending December 31st, 2026.
Second.
Second by Trustee Santamaria. Any further questions or comments? Anyone from the audience? If not, voice vote, or no, excuse me, roll call vote again, please.
Trustee Dunnington?
Yes.
Trustee Santamaria?
Yes.
Trustee Zyck?
Yes.
Trustee Manganaro?
Aye.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Yes.
Trustee Gilbert?
Yes.
Trustee Bertucci?
Yes.
President Tinaglia?
Yes. All right, very good. Well, that was a really spirited and positive discussion at so many different levels. Thank you to everyone for your participation. I think what we'll do now is we'll go back to the agenda in its formal process, and the next item is actually citizens to be heard. I do have a handful of blue cards here. And I think I'm going to sift through them quickly. It looks like all these are involving one particular item, and that would be new business item E. Is there anybody that wants to be heard or recognized on citizens to be heard for an item that's not on the agenda today? Yes, sir. Come on up to the podium, introduce yourself, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Marcelino Gonzalez II, Gulf War era peacetime vet. I served from 1999 to 2001. I heard on the news a few days ago, I don't know if it was canceled, that there was supposed to be a vote tonight for to allow or not allow immigration custom enforcement in town.
Yeah, okay, so I don't mean to interrupt you, but that's coming up here just a little bit yet. So
All right,
if,
thanks.
if you like, I'll call upon you
No,
when that item comes up.
I don't really, I want to stay neutral on everything, so.
Yeah. If there's something you want to say, please do, but I'll call upon you
Right,
when that item
thanks.
comes up, okay? It'll be up in a minute or two. Anybody else? Not on the agenda? Okay. So that'll be citizens to be heard. The next item is the consent agenda, and this is one vote for a whole slew of items. Is there anyone on the board that wishes to vote no or pass on any items on the consent agenda? I'm going to answer that by saying item J. I am going to pass on that because my firm did the drawings for that project a couple years back, so I will like to formally recuse myself from voting on that one. Is there anyone that is in the audience that would like someone from the board to pull an item off of the consent agenda for discussion? Seeing none. No removals, nothing else other than my comment. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I would
So
move.
moved.
Go ahead.
Who got that? Trustee Manganaro?
I go through the
Okay.
runner.
Would you like to second that?
I will second that.
Okay. Motion made by trustee Manganaro, seconded by trustee Schwingbeck. Is any other discussion from anyone? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote too, I believe.
Trustee Manganaro?
Aye.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Yes.
Trustee Gilbert?
Yes.
Trustee Bertucci?
Yes.
Trustee Dunnington?
Yes.
Trustee Santa Maria?
Yes.
Trustee Zyck?
Yes.
President Tinaglia?
Yes. All right. We're winding down here. Item D, under new business. This is a motion to approve an extension of a planned unit development for 116 through 120 West Eastman Street. PC doc number 23-002. Manager Recklouse, would you fill us in?
I think Director Rodman has this one.
Okay.
Hi, thank you. No formal presentation this evening. I just wanted to note that the petitioner for the property at 116 to 120 West Eastman has requested an extension to the existing PUD approval. So that PUD approval was granted by ordinance 2023-085 back in December of 2023. And per the village code, the PUD approval is in effect for 2 years. And it expires unless the petitioner has secured a building permit and begun construction within that 2-year time frame. The petitioner has indicated they have not and will not be able to do that by the 18th of this month, and thus is requesting a 12-month extension of the village board. They have provided a letter which was included in your packet detailing the challenges with moving the project forward these past 2 years and committing to moving it forward within the next 12 months. They are here this evening if the board has any questions either for staff or for the petitioner.
Okay. Thank you, Director Rodman. Are there any questions from anyone on the board? Trustee Schwingbeck.
Thank you, Mayor. It's not a question, but I would like to address the petitioner. If you
Is the
could come-
petitioner here? If they could come on up to the podium, that'd be great.
I mean, this is really near and dear to my beliefs with construction in this village. We've seen an enormous project come to us. We gave them approval, and in a very short period of time, right through this market, the building is almost complete, and they've moved forward it really fast. And, you know, we just got done talking about the budget and, you know, what brings money into the village, and that's property tax. And certainly in developments, you've got some commercial space. And we approved this back 2 years ago. And so sitting here on this property without any of this development that I thought was a great project is really doing our village no good at all. We need these projects to move forward. It creates an increase in our tax levy and hopefully an increase in sales tax as well. So I certainly don't have a problem giving you an extension, but I just don't want this thing to continue like we've seen some other projects here in town where nothing happens. I mean, this is an ideal piece of property. You guys did a tremendous job engaging the community around this project. They were extremely interested in what was going on, and now we're 2 years down the road and nothing's been done. So I have no problem with a year-long extension, but I'd like to see this thing move forward. And I guess I'd like to hear your thoughts, because there's been other projects bigger than this one that have moved forward with financing.
Yes, thank you. I do appreciate being here and addressing you all. The challenges that I'm facing is no different than a lot of other developers. I think you're referring to the Bradford Allen project that's at end of the South Arlington Heights Road. They're a billion-dollar company. I run a small development company. I've been doing this for about 23 years, and I've been through 2 economic cycles, 08, 09, and then the last 2020 COVID-19. And so one of the things that we're doing currently is I've had new partnership come in, so I've got new equity investors. We're about to release the work for the construction drawings with the architect. It's about a $500,000 expense that we're going to be undertaking very shortly. Probably in January, we'll start that process with our current architecture firm that we hired. That process will be concluded sometime in May, so about 4 or 5 months from now. And at that point, we'll have the documents ready to go out to the market for construction pricing. I think what's also challenging for us right now is the interest rate environment, and it's still very high. And so construction pricing, in addition to interest rate pricing, is high. So we're hoping for some relief over the next few months. But I think, all in all, I think my new partners are well capitalized. They're a $1 billion real estate development company out of Utah. And I have a personal relationship with the founder of the company now, and he's committed to financing this project. So we're moving the process along, starting very shortly, and we should be ready to go in the next 6 or 7 months.
So with the plan that you have, it almost sounds like towards the fall, you still haven't submitted anything to the village,
right,
for approval.
So in order to submit for building permits, we need full building plans,
right,
and specs. So that's what we're going to be working on. As soon as those are done, we'll have the necessary documentation to submit to the building department.
Are you sensing that that's going to all be complete by the end of next year? Because it's December 18th of 2026, or are we going to be coming to us once again looking for another?
I don't envision us coming back for a second time, for a second extension. I think we're going to get everything done. We've designed a great project. Unlike some of the other projects that have been proposed here in the village, I've designed something that we can actually build. We can afford to build it. I think the rents are coming up too, which has also been challenging. So we have to have the rents to support the construction cost increases that we've been seeing over the last few years. I can't predict that we're gonna nail it. I just know that we're doing the right things right now in order to make that time frame.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any, okay, I'm sorry, maybe before you leave?
Yep.
Trustee Gilbert.
Yeah. I appreciate you coming here. I just want to echo Trustee Schwingbeck's sentiments. I mean, I feel like it's us that wind up defending you guys to residents when people say, what's going on with this? What's going on with that? And then we're in your shoes trying to say, oh, it's a financing issue or it's something. I mean, people in this town want development. I want development, and we see these parcels of land that are sitting there, and we spend all this time working on this stuff, and then all of a sudden nothing happens. And it just seems like it becomes a complete waste of time. So I don't want this necessarily to be a placeholder. I'm not sure that you're going to find economic certainty over the next 12 months that will make you say, now is the time. If anything, it might be getting worse. So my question is one to Randy. What happens procedurally if this extension doesn't get approved?
Theoretically, they'd have to go through the whole process again.
Okay. And that's really it, right? There's no other consequence to not approving.
No, I mean, that's, and whether they would, want to go through that process again, I think is up to them. But I mean, that would be a time for, all of us to go through that again. Again, that would be the consequence of not extending it.
Is 1 year a minimum? Does it have to be a year? Can there be a shorter extension? What are the parameters?
I believe we have done shorter extensions in the past. I think for the Arlington 425 project, if memory serves, we've done, didn't we do a 6-month extension at one point or a 9-month extension?
I believe that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
Okay, I'm just curious, and I'm certainly not looking to make an example of you. I welcome the development. I wasn't here at the beginning of the process, obviously, but the fact that you're here and you want to do this is great. We want it done too. And so I think it's just something that the board might want to look at going forward is, do we give these year-long extensions? Would we like to see them come back in the fall and provide a status or something? Because I think a lot of these things sort of just get lost in the shuffle and then they show up a year later and we've lost track of it. And I'd like us to be able to track this and provide status updates to whoever wants them or needs them or would like to know about them as to what's going on in the town.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's, if the petitioner is willing to come back, in 6 months and provide an update if there wasn't one already, I mean, that's something that the board can, it seems that the petitioner is willing to do so.
I'd like to request the 12 months and come back in 6 and give you guys an update in person. I'm a Barrington resident, so I don't live very far.
Yeah, no, that's great. Again, I think that, this is not something that I take lightly, and I don't think my fellow board members do either. We would like to see the wheels turning. And it's always kind of the same thing. Like, well, we don't know. Nobody knows. But there are people that are putting shovels in the ground and getting things done. And, we're holding them to a timeline standard. And I think that should be an expectation. The expectation shouldn't be, I'll just kick the can for another year and we'll see what happens. So just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Trustee Gilbert. Anyone else? Okay.
I was about to say, I thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we have exactly one developer that has really, as you mentioned, gotten things done, and we have a number that have delayed for a number of reasons. Having read the packet here, I believe that you're in process of a good faith effort. I am not going to belabor the process. What I'm going to do is move that the board approve the request for an extension of the PUD for 116 to 120 West Eastman until December 18th, 2026.
All right, that's a motion.
Second.
And a second by Trustee Santa Maria. Any further discussion? Anyone? Oh, Trustee Bertucci?
Does that motion need to, if we so desire, to include the check-in, or is that just something that is aside from the motion?
Trustee Bertucci, it can be either way. If you want to formalize it, it could be part of the motion. It can also be understood on the side if that's the board's pleasure.
Okay. I don't know.
Are we suggesting that the petitioner come in and do that personally, or do we want an update from staff in 6 months? Petitioner?
I believe that's where Tom was.
And it's on, the petitioner is on the record indicating that they're willing to come back.
Yeah.
No issues here.
And you're okay with
Yeah,
that? All right.
absolutely.
I don't know that it needs to be included in the motion, but if you don't show up, we're going to come find you.
Got it.
All right. Is that good?
Perfect.
All right. Works for me. All right, we have a motion made, a second. Anyone from the audience? All right. I think we need a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Manganaro?
Aye.
Trustee Santa Maria?
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Yes.
Trustee Gilbert?
Yes.
Trustee Dunnington?
Yes.
Trustee Bertucci?
Yes.
Trustee Zyck?
Yes.
President Tinaglia?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Congratulations. Good luck. All right. And then I think the last item, if I'm not mistaken, is item E on new business, and that is what I believe I have a number of cards for, and the gentleman that wants to come up and speak again. This is item E, an ordinance regulating the use of public spaces for civil immigration enforcement activities. And I know Village Manager Recklouse has some presentation information here to share with us on this?
I do. There we go. So this was something that was discussed a couple of times. There was initially on the November 3rd meeting, the village board asked staff to explore options. On November 6th, the staff issued an interim policy on civil immigration enforcement to village staff that directed staff on how to deal with these issues if they presented themselves within our community. This policy would be updated after actions tonight. And then on the November 17th meeting, the village board directed staff to draft an ordinance that prohibits the use of any village-owned property for civil immigration operations. Obviously, this is an issue that has been discussed a couple of times at this level. It's something that is very front of mind and scary for a lot of folks in our community. Where there's a lot of stories that I think we've all heard, or things that many of us have seen firsthand in terms of civil immigration enforcement happening within our community, and in many cases, kind of going beyond what I think we all accept to be the norms of law enforcement. I think that's why we've heard strongly from the board that there's an interest in ensuring that the village is not kind of complicit in helping or facilitating this type of activity. So what staff has drafted is a relatively simple ordinance that sets the tone for the community in terms of what expectations are. There's essentially two sections. There's a prohibition of the use of property owned, operated, or leased by the village for civil immigration enforcement other than public rights of way. Given that we are limited in terms of how we can cite or engage in enforcement action against a federal law enforcement agency, really it comes down to having our local law enforcement document in writing and appearing with their body cameras to observe any alleged violation, so then that can be brought back to the village board to determine if appropriate legal action can be considered, and obviously if, the venue for that generally would be federal court. But that's the ordinance as written. So based on the direction of the board at the last meeting, we think that this would be an appropriate and legally vetted way to have an ordinance on this matter. And so staff recommends approval of the ordinance regulating the use of village property for civil immigration enforcement as drafted.
Thank you, Manager Recklouse. Let's go right to the village board for any comments or questions for staff. Anyone on either side? Trustee Manganaro?
I want to thank Manager Recklouse and the entire staff for the job that you've done with this. I think you've heard the entire discussion. You were very proactive about taking initial action prior to the November 17th meeting, and you really did a great job of balancing the desire to assert control of our property with avoiding risk to the village and to any of our staff members. I think the enforcement by documentation is absolutely appropriate given the situation that we're in. And so I am going to move that we pass the ordinance, approve the ordinance regulating the use of village property for civil immigration activities as it has been presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Trustee Manganaro and seconded by Trustee Santa Maria. We will carry on with discussion from the board. Other comments, questions? Trustee Dunnington?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to add that I was really pleased to see the immigration resources that were added to the village website. Either Friday or Monday that was added. I think the more information, facts information that we can provide people, the better. I also have received a lot of thanks for our unanimous decision to draft this ordinance. I think that it shows that Arlington Heights wants to let our residents know that we care about this issue, what's happening. We know that people are scared and that immigrants are an important part of our community and that we really value them here in Arlington Heights. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Trustee Dunnington. Trustee Schwingbeck?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I will certainly echo what Trustee Dunnington said. But just a quick question, because I missed that November 17th meeting. Like some other things we've done in the village, Randy, how are we going to convey this ordinance to the folks at the federal level so that they know Arlington Heights has this ordinance?
I think what we've seen, I mean, we'll certainly put it out on our social media. We've heard they are monitoring the news and so forth and that type of thing. And then, I know we have at least one member of the press here tonight and others that I know routinely follow us online.
Right.
So I'm sure it will be covered in that way, is what we were saying. I think it's different than when we're talking about other issues in the past, we were dealing with another state.
Right.
The federal agencies have a presence in our neighborhood, if you
Right.
will. And
Yeah, and
we'll be
that was
aware of
kind
these
of my
things.
question, is when we were dealing with a state or two
Yeah.
states, we actually sent
letters.
a letter to the governor's office
Yes.
in those states. So
We did.
yeah, I just wanted to know how we were going to do that. And then I guess just my other question is that second bullet point about, I certainly understand the documentation but realistically, are we going to be able to do anything in a federal court on this?
That is, as we talked about 2 weeks ago, not aware of any municipality. As you know, there have been a number of municipalities that have adopted ordinances similar to the one before you right now. Not aware of an enforcement action in court other than a pretty unique circumstance involving the village of Broadview where the ICE facility is located. And that was a bit different. I don't think it's good precedent. The simple answer is I don't know, Trustee Schwingbeck.
Okay.
This ordinance would preserve the village's ability to bring such an action if it were deemed warranted by the board.
Okay. Well, thank you, and I appreciate putting this together, so I'm in support of it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Trustee Gilbert?
Thank you. Thank you, staff, for doing this. This is great. Thank you to the community who's spoke on this. I think it's been important to hear all the voices. And thank you to my fellow trustees. I think that this has brought up some excellent discussion amongst us, and I've appreciated every one of your viewpoints for not only this, all the topics, but I think this is something where it's a great thing to bring up, that this has been an excellent dialogue amongst us and our community, and that makes me proud. So a sincere set of gratitude to all of you and to everybody who's spoken up about this. It's been an experience, and it's been a good one. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Gilbert. Trustee Bertucci?
Thank you, Mayor. So what I wanted to just make a point of is that Section 3 enforcement, and I appreciated the way that's worded, the reality of it, and I'd like to make sure that, or ask that when we communicate to the public, that we keep it in that fashion so as not to give anybody any expectations that this ordinance would keep ICE out of Arlington Heights or keep them even off our property, so to speak. If we need this ordinance, in fact, to document and to then make a decision about possible legal action, or filing in federal court, then so be it. But I do appreciate how it's worded so that we're straightforward, and this is the limit of where we can be, but at the same time not giving anybody in the public any any expectation that we can go any further than that.
Yeah, if I could, Mayor,
Yes,
I'm
please do.
glad that Trustee Bertucci brought that up. I meant to mention that, is that we do want to make sure that we don't want to give members of the public a false sense of security on this, where they feel that, by being on a piece of public property, they're somehow protected from immigration enforcement. I think that this is obviously sending a message that, there isn't going to be cooperation, but it's also something where we don't want this to run counter to its intent in any way, and we want to make that very clear to members of the public that this is a statement. And obviously, if they violate this, there'll be documentation and consideration of legal action. But at the same time, realistically, we just have to acknowledge the reality of this, and that we don't want to lull people into a false sense of security.
Thank you, Manager Ratcliffe. Well said. Okay. I have exactly, I think, 6 cards here, and I'll call on everyone. You all have up to 3 minutes to speak on it. If you heard what I heard, this is going to pass almost unanimously. So use your 3 minutes if you want to. I'm going to start with the young man in the dark blue shirt that tried to speak before, and I shut him down, not to be mean, but feel free, it's yours. Come on up to the podium if you'd like, or you can just say, never mind.
No, I can't, just nervous, but I won't cry about it.
What? Give us your name, please.
Marcelino Gonzalez II. God rest the soul of the first dad. I know you're here. Again, Gulf War era peacetime vet. This one's a hard one for me. I come from an American Puerto Rican family. Puerto Rico's the melting pot of the world, one of the United States' finest territory. A lot of people don't know it's a U.S. territory, where we're at right now to fight against Venezuela. I love Trump. I love Biden. We see things differently. Some of us that come from the military ranks. My daughter, she's a Gonzalez Quiñones, American born. Her mother I sponsored over 20 years ago. What's her current status? I don't care. She's a good mother. My son, he's with the Cherokee family, Gonzalez Cherokee, American Puerto Rican. Doesn't matter. All sisters and brothers in one spirit. Don't want to use the faith card right now, but I am Roman Catholic. All Christians, whatever you want to believe. There's even one pope that said our Creator created evolution. A lot of Catholics were surprised. He just published that book a few years ago. So this one's a hard one on me because nothing supersedes federal law. So what's going to happen in the next few months with Trump and Vance and Rubio, the stuff that they claim that Biden did in the past, whether it's true or not, since the times of Snowden, we don't even know what to believe, what's on the news, and that I had my medical discharge honorable before 2001, before 9/11, and then after 9/11 happened, I tried to re-enlist with every government branch, and they wouldn't take me because of my medical discharge. So it's hard. So I'll just leave it at that. There's, and then even by the feds, I was, I've been out. I had I don't even remember what my security clearance, but they just told me to stay neutral when it comes to politics because I'm not going to get nowhere. So I'm just staying on that card right now. So whatever happens in the near future in Arlington Heights or wherever in the United States, there's a creator, and all of us are going to pay for the good and the bad. I'll just leave it at that. So.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. Appreciate you coming out. Next I have is Janet McDonald. Janet, are you still here?
Happy to hear you think it's going to pass, and I hope you're right. I just want to say that I want to begin by acknowledging what you already know, which is that these are hard times to be decision makers. Emotions are running high, especially on this ICE issue. And to complicate matters, we find ourselves in the unusual position of dealing with federal government officials who are lying to us, not just obfuscating or spinning, but straight up lying, as in 2 + 2 = 5. And the overarching lie is that ICE is arresting the worst of the worst. In truth, ICE is terrorizing peaceful neighborhoods to round up hardworking people of color, our neighbors, landscapers, and babysitters in an effort to meet their cruel quota. And now they're going for DACA recipients who trusted our government, gave the government their information in exchange for a promise that they would receive a work permit and would not be deported, and now they're being rounded up. So it would be easy for those of us who feel secure in our skin tone and citizenship status to look away and claim this is a federal issue and it's out of our hands. It would be easy but immoral. As long as masked ICE agents continue to violate due process and use racial profiling to terrorize peaceful neighborhoods, we must join the growing number of surrounding villages who are passing ordinances to make it clear that ICE is not welcome here. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Next is Nancy Eberhardt. And after Nancy will be Kim Hogan.
Hello.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi. I was here 2 weeks ago, and I did speak. And I want to just thank you all for your responsiveness, for our collective concern for ICE activity in this area. As you heard over and over again, it's a very emotional issue and personal to many of us. So thank you to all who worked on crafting this ordinance, and it shows that Arlington Heights is willing to stand up to protect our immigrant neighbors and the wonderful employees that contribute to the quality of life here in Arlington Heights. It's an important message to send, and so I urge you to pass it as presented. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Nancy. Kim, you're up. Kim Hogan, and then on deck is Renee Stenko.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Tinaglia and the board. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I also was here 2 weeks ago and I spoke, and I am very happy to see the board and particularly the efforts of the manager and the staff to put so much effort into crafting this ordinance that is so very well needed. I live down the street from here, a couple blocks away, and I never thought in my wildest dreams, I've lived in this city for over 30 years, that I would have to warn landscapers working on my block that ICE agents were a few streets over, and if they were in trouble or approached, that they could come to my house. There were, an abduction down the block from me. So I feel that the passage of this ordinance, of course, is such an important statement. I'm very proud of the village and our government, our local government, to listen to us and take this into consideration. And just to support what I'm saying here on a little bit more personal note, and it's going to take a minute for me to find it. I'd like to read an email that was sent to a neighbor of mine a few streets over from Dave Rooney. He's the owner of Rooney Landscaping. I think we're all familiar with Rooney with their big trucks. They're one of the largest landscaping companies in Arlington Heights. And this is what he said. This is to my neighbor in response to an email that she sent to him in support. Your email is a treasure. I sometimes feel that the neighborhoods in which we work, that no one cares about what our employees are facing on a daily basis. We have very few undocumented workers, but even our documented workers are scared to death that they will be picked up even when they provide proof of citizenship. These are trying times, and we're all looking forward to our season ending later this month, which is about now. We did have one of our subcontractors picked up last week, and we are currently assisting his family in trying to get him a trial date. I wish that ICE would realize that the murderers and rapists they are so intent on deporting are not getting up at 5 a.m. to travel to their employer's facility to get in trucks and perform manual labor 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. I can't tell you how much your email means to me and my family I'm with today. Thank you for your concern and willingness to help. It truly is inspiring. Dave Rooney. So on that note, I urge the board to vote unanimously to pass this very well-crafted and excellent ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Up is Renee Stenko, and after Renee will be John Supplett.
Good evening. Thank you so much for listening. And I'd just like to say I am very happy with the response, and I really appreciate all the energy and research that has gone into the presentations. But I am here to urge you to not lean into this ordinance as the end-all and be-all. We must prepare ourselves that things are not going to get any easier, and that if we don't act, we may continue to lose our community to ICE. Chicago has always been an innovator. From the ashes of the fire of 1872, we turned to masonry and steel to create the tallest buildings in the world. In 1893, Daniel Hale Williams performed the first open heart surgery at the hospital he founded because no institution would train Black doctors and nurses like himself. In 1900, we reversed a whole river to prevent disease. Fortitude and tenacity run deep through our veins. As Louis Sullivan said, form follows function. When our government is no longer functioning, we must take on that new form, even if it's never been done before. There is no reason we can't again become an innovator in constructing better legal framework to engineer safety in a time when our rights are challenged. But we must take greater steps. I'm urging you to create a coalition across municipalities to petition our state representatives to close loopholes in the Trust Act. We must demand ICE operate in marked vehicles, work unmasked, proactively identify themselves, and have a warrant for that specific citizen, or they must leave. This ordinance, although very well crafted, it's not enough. They're still taking people from Elgin and Carpentersville who are helping us to clean the roads. They do not have warrants, and they are using detection systems and apps on their phones to try to identify themselves. This was a stop in West Chicago. This all started because I was very upset about a video I saw in Hoffman Estates where a minor was body slammed to the ground. She was maybe 2 or 3 minutes from the Hoffman Estates police office, and a police car was on the scene, and it drove away. This is a picture from Berwyn, a very dangerous place, of an ICE agent pointing a gun into a car. So my thing is that we were all here when the sergeants were sworn in, and they were sworn in to protect the Constitution. And so I urge you to keep trying to find new solutions, to be creative, and to innovate. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Next is John Supplett. And last will be Andy Greisimer. John?
Thank you, Mayor Tinaglia, and thank you, board members. It is exciting to see unanimous support for an ordinance banning ICE and CBP access to village property. It signals to residents, especially those most vulnerable in our village, that officials will work to protect their rights and keep them safe. Regarding the topic of enforceability, there are measures that municipalities can take to protect our residents from illegal actions taken by federal agents. Specifically, I ask the board to consider enhancing the ordinance with 3 locally enforceable provisions. First, prohibit local officials from performing the functions of federal immigration officers, absent any written agreement between state and local government entities and DHS. Second, a provision to prohibit local law enforcement, including school resource officers, from asking about or gathering information about an individual's immigration status unless the information connects to an investigation into a violation of state or local law. Detaining individuals solely to prohibit local law enforcement from detaining individuals solely to determine their immigration status, from taking persons into custody for holding them in custody solely due to their immigration status or solely due to the civil immigration warrant or an immigration hold request, and prohibit law enforcement from entering into any oral or written agreement related to immigration enforcement. And the third provision would be to prohibit employers from giving federal agents warrantless access to private workplace areas and requiring employers to notify employees about anticipated federal immigration workforce inspections. These are all local and actionable. Like the ordinance requesting village property, an ordinance reinforcing home rule and regulating residents' rights to due process signals that our village officials will work to protect and keep them safe. Thank you for your time, consideration, and support of our residents who are most vulnerable, and for taking action on provisions that can be enforced locally. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Last, Andy? Is it Greisemer or Greisemer? Griesmer. Just don't call you late for dinner, right?
Those were some tough comments to follow up on. Mine's a little bit more, I don't know, selfish, I guess, in some ways. But before I get into that, I just want to thank the staff for drafting this really well-written ordinance. I want to thank the board for the unanimous vote a couple weeks ago. I have twin 8-year-old boys. I can keep them from seeing all the videos that many of us have seen of the gassing in neighborhoods that look like ours. We're in Scarsdale, just 4 blocks from here. I have seen the federal agents. I think it was a month ago. There's three vehicles that clustered. They were preparing, I don't know what. But I can't protect my boys from seeing these violent, aggressive methods and tactics that they use out in the public when they come back in spring. Bovino and those goons, they're coming back in March. They've said it themselves. I mean, they could come back 2-fold, 3-fold. I want to be able to tell my boys that at least if they are to see this, that I did everything I could. I came here twice now, and that the village did everything that we could. I know we can't act on federal agents. They have superior powers over local governments, but I think that this is a really important thing that we need to do. So hate to be the one that closes, but hopefully the message is sent or received, and thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Yeah.
So I like that. That's good. I like that. Much better. Again, a spirited conversation all the way around 2 weeks ago and again today. And I think the message is, I wrote down 3 words: we do care. And I think everybody in this room does. I really mean that. Oh, there's someone who wants to still speak. You didn't fill out a blue card, sir.
Steve Bly, I'm a resident. So sometimes it's really difficult to have a logical brain and to see things just purely practical. Things such as walking into my church and seeing this sticker that says, "We don't have a gun in here." So anybody with a gun can run in and shoot us all. And we all feel really good that we have a sticker that's keeping somebody out of our church. So that's feeling good kind of things. We're going to put a sticker up. Now, let's have an ordinance now that's going to say we're not going to allow federal agents who have been researching and looking at the worst of the worst of the worst that our last administration let in by the millions. You either didn't watch TV or you chose to put your head in the sand, but millions upon millions were let in from all around the world who came in from anywhere undocumented. And now that they're here, the federal government is doing the best they can to find the people. And I'm not talking about immigration or different countries. I'm saying the people that have proven themselves to have committed crimes. We know there was a young girl who was jogging at her college campus who was murdered and raped by somebody there. We've seen all kinds of things. You can forget it and not watch the news, or you can actually read the news and know that these things happen. So I am very happy to know that someone is trying to keep the criminals away. I walk down my street and I see a group of happy teenage girls and I think to myself, boy, it's great that they live in Arlington Heights where it's so safe. So if you had somebody come into town who decides to drive by the same girls and want to throw them into their car, you would probably want to stop that person. And that's what I believe in my soul that ICE is doing. They're trying to stop the people that are going to go after our teenage girls and go after the people and go into our homes. So you actually want to have an ordinance so you'll feel good. You'll feel good that you're going to have something out there that the ICE is not going to, oh, what are they going to do? They're going to chase somebody into the village hall and then they're going to what, stand there? And you're all going to go, yay, he made it. He's away from ICE. You're acting as if ICE is the enemy and they're federal people that we pay. Just like you people are all supporting our government, ICE is supporting our country's safety. And you're all, I mean, it's insane to listen to some of this stuff. Oh my God, they're so terrible. Oh my God, the words I hear, they make me puke. I mean, these people are trying to save us and stop crime. In the same way we love our police, we love our fire department. I've got all three colors on my car, green, red, and blue, because I believe in you guys and I know you're doing a good thing. But now you're not going to stop ICE? How is ICE any different than our own police officers? You love our police. Why is ICE any different? They're not the enemy. And what's the sign say? The president is a convicted felon because your side decided to convict him. Thank you. Okay, anyway, I could talk for hours, but this is driving me crazy. Will somebody realize the stupidity of putting a no gun sign on a door and the stupidity of writing something that says, we're not going to stop ICE if they walk onto our property?
Thank you. Well, did we get name? Yeah. I'm just making sure. Sorry. I appreciate it. Yes, you may.
My name is Margarita.
We'll go ahead and into the microphone, please.
My name is Margarita Stukos, and I'm here for my students. What will we do for them moving forward? I'm sorry. They're scared to be in school. They're scared to walk to school. They're scared their parents will get banished. What are we going to do next for them? May I ask?
Unfortunately,
and thank you for doing everything you're doing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
But they're scared. And again, somebody mentioned we're the right color, right? I'm half Hispanic. I'm half Mexican. My mother's from Monterrey, Mexico. But what if I was darker? And they have arrested people that are citizens. ICE has vanished people. So if they're allowed to vanish people without a warrant or anything, it could be me, it could be you next. It could be our loved ones. I guess I can't ask the question, but that's what I wanted to ask. So perhaps, you know, this is a great start, and thank you so much for doing this, but I feel like we're kind of retroactive in a way too. This has been happening for a while. And again, I really feel for the kids. They shouldn't be afraid to go to school or to go home and not see their families. Maybe, you know, maybe here again, we're the right color, but it shouldn't be that way. This is America. There are too many parallels to the 1930s in Germany, and I think we should do as much as we can do for them, for those people, and for us, perhaps maybe tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right. There's not going to be clapping. You can put that sign down, please. Thank you.
Hi,
Yes.
I'll be brief. My sister and her husband are retired federal agents. My sister's career was doing counterterrorism for the FBI. That was the division she was in. She worked the first 9/11 bombing in 1993, and she worked the one in 9/11. I have a ton of respect for her. She had small children when she was doing her job. She was often in very difficult situations. As you know, terrorism is really bad. I understand how people here are very upset. But last week, or 2 weeks ago, we had a woman here that compared federal agents to school shooters. No, they are not school shooters. And I think that's despicable. They don't come into the school and shoot up a school. I think it's terrible. We had another woman who's here tonight that came up and she said, Bertucci, Tinaglia, WAP. She went to the Mount Prospect meeting the next night and named 4 trustees with Italian names and said WAP. If she wants to talk about her family of WAPs, that's fine. Why would she disrespect a mayor, a trustee here, and 4 trustees in Mount Prospect by mentioning WAPs to them? That's derogatory, and it doesn't belong here. I think we need to find respect for each other during these times. I think we need to find respectful talk when we come to this podium. And I think that we should think about this room as a place that should have respect. I have respect for our board, every single one of you. I understand that it's difficult, but from the rhetoric that I've heard, it's not good. And I think sometimes when we say that our law enforcement or our federal agents are school shooters, what ends up happening? Kooks come out and shoot 2 National Guards in Washington. They didn't deserve to be shot. She didn't deserve to die. And he doesn't deserve to be in critical condition. I think the rhetoric needs to be toned down. And I think that we all, as a village, needs to work together for that.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. I think you're 100% correct on many of the points that you made. And in this room in particular, I consider this a safe place. I consider this a place where you can speak your truth, you can speak your mind. Everyone up here does. Everyone in our audience is allowed to do that. It does need to maintain a respectful presentation. And I've said it several times about how I look at things with clapping, and do this all you want. I don't want delays with clapping. I think it's disrespectful. I think I want to close with my thoughts on some of the different things that I've heard here. If you were able to sit at my desk and read my inbox, my emails, you would learn that for every single comment here tonight, there was an equal and opposite comment from another side of the equation. What we've witnessed 2 weeks ago and again here tonight is a very, very passionate perspective, but it's one side. And what I believe we're doing here tonight is we are speaking with one voice that we care about those children in the schools that are afraid to lose their mother or their father, or Dave Rooney, who's trying to take care of his employees with the landscape businesses. We get it. We absolutely get it. But what you folks have to all understand, what everybody in this room, when I said to you folks, what we, all of us need to understand is our police officers and our paramedics cannot intervene. They cannot interfere with anything that's going on with a federal agent. It cannot be done. It has been attempted in another municipality not far from here, adjacent to us. And that policeman is in a world of trouble because of it. I cannot, on good conscience, walk out of this room today imagining Drew or Lance or anybody from the fire department or anybody from Nick's police department trying to get involved in a situation because of an ordinance that we've created. And before you know it, this poor young lady or young man who's wearing one of our uniforms is in serious, serious trouble with a federal agency. At the same time, I don't like it. I do not like what I see on TV. And I suppose it depends on which stations you watch. You watch certain stations, you're going to get one perspective. You watch another station, you're going to get the complete opposite. It's an interesting, crazy world that we live in right now. And none of us have to like it. I guarantee you none of us in this room really like it. Is it done right? Is it done perfectly? No. But we're living in it. It's just a time, it's a window. So what we're doing here tonight is, I believe what we're going to do is show Arlington Heights that we do care. I just want to be really mindful and really careful that we are not stepping into something. And this is going to be on Manager Recklaus's shoulders now to make sure, and Chief Harris and Chief Pecora's shoulders, to make sure that everyone who wears our uniform understands what they can and cannot do. And for the rest of us in the community, same thing. Don't get yourself in trouble. With a little bit of luck, this is going to stop. It's going to go away. Maybe they're going to come back. I don't know. It's a crazy time, and I'm not advocating for it here. Please don't misunderstand my words for advocating any of this. It's horrible. But at the same time, there's limits that we can do. Are we going to actually really go ahead and throw a federal lawsuit and pay for it out of all your tax dollars to fight one of these guys? I don't know. Maybe. But that'll be a question maybe down the road. Maybe not. I hope not. I hope we never have to think about it. But for now, it's going to be education. Education, communication, making sure that everyone is safe that works for the village, and everyone of us at home know what the rules are. And this ordinance is a good step in the right direction to try and make that happen. So that's really all I had to say. I appreciate you giving me a moment to say it. It's 10:15. I think at this point, unless there's any further dialogue from the board, a motion to adopt item E has been made by Trustee Manganaro and seconded by Trustee Santa Maria. And it would be appropriate to take a roll call vote here.
Trustee Manganaro?
Aye.
Trustee Santa Maria?
Yes.
Trustee Dunnington?
Yes.
Trustee Gilbert?
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Yes?
Trustee Zyck?
Yes.
Trustee Bertucci?
Yes.
President Tinaglia?
Yes. All right, motion carries unanimously. Now you can all clap. That is the end of our business for today. Is there anything else, Manager Recklaus?
Nothing further this evening.
All right, then a motion to adjourn would be appropriate.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Trustee Gilbert, seconded by Trustee Schwingbeck. All those in favor say aye.
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 We are adjourned. Thank you all for participating.